Let's go. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go.
Let's go.
We're here.
Hello.
Which experiment is this? Hello, everyone. Just starting the show. The wife is here. It's always special when the wife's here. And it's always going to get more science-y when you come on the show.
Why is that?
Because, looking into these experiments, psychological things, connecting them to what's going on today, and just having people be aware of them, I don't know. It goes into the science realm for me. And obviously, when I say science, I mean like psychology, human behavior, all that stuff.
I like sciencey stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You're good with that. You're good with the informational stuff. So, which experiment is it today?
What is it called again? I'm getting them all. Robber's Cave.
It's an interesting one. You know, this is the experiment that sparked my idea of us looking into a lot of different psychological experiments. When I saw this, because I was like, you know what sparked it? I was like, this is a lot to read. I'm like,
you wanted to know what it was in an easy format?
Yeah.
Get the wife to read it.
And I was like, she can read this. This will be a breeze for her.
It actually was a lot to read.
It was.
It was a very long article.
I know. Every single article that I saw was really long, but the one that you found that you were briefly talking to me about, that sounds like the one to focus on the most. But before we do that, I have to bring you to the store, of course, made by this amazing lady. This is a Coach Colin's wife classic, this website. This is our newest design. It is the Soul Not For Sale with the American flag atop of it. The red, white, and blue, the stars and the stripes. Get it here now. You go to catalog, go to America's Soul Not For Sale, and then you go over to the whole thing we got. You got t-shirts for men and women, tank tops for men and women, and hoodies, as well as a whole bunch of other anti-establishment type of clothing. We got the Soul Not For Sale, the black and the white. We got the anti-WEF shirts, which are limited time because of this lady, and the Great Resist shirts as well. If you don't know what the Great Resist is, you've heard of the Great Reset, yes? The crickets that you have to eat, the renting everything, including your own clothing, yes. Agenda 2030, Klaus Schwab, yes. The Great Reset. Do not join the Great Reset. Join the Great Resist instead, where you can eat all the meat that you can slaughter yourself, because we'll all be living in homesteads. I think that's a little better.
That'd be great. I'd like to do that now.
I know. And if you want 10% off of anything you just saw on the site, all you have to do is put in the discount code AREA. I am Coach Colin. It's all capital letters, all one word, one L on the Colin, gets you 10% off. You're welcome very much. Now let's get into the show. What's going on? I'm getting good at that.
You are.
I like it.
It's a good little spiel you got going. So Robber's Cave is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this before. Had you?
No, I just stumbled onto it one day. I don't even know how I really even saw it.
There's a lot of psychology tests and experiments that were done on kids. It's crazy. That doesn't happen anymore.
That we know of.
True.
You know, because is this one from the 60s again, or?
Oh, I forget when this one's from. Let me see if there's a date on the top of it.
Because the last one we did was the Bobo doll experiment. That was from the 60s.
Yeah, this is 1950s.
So you see what I mean? So it's like maybe by 2040, 2050, we'll hear about what was being done to kids in 2020. You know what I mean?
Yeah, interesting.
You never know.
Yeah, so this one's was the thought experiment of a psychologist named Muzaffer Sherif.
Muzaffer?
Yep. Muzaffer.
Sheriff?
Yeah. Sherif.
Cool.
Or maybe Sharif. Probably Sharif.
That's it.
I think he's, I want to say Turkish, it said in the article. I forget exactly.
Okay.
But anyway, so he wanted to see if his hypothesis about human behavior was correct. And his hypothesis was that if people are separated into two groups, they will fight with each other because they're labeled two different things. But if faced with a common issue that they have to come together on, they will ignore those differences and come together to fix it. So he put together camp experiments for 11-year-old boys.
Wow.
Yeah. And the first one he did was called, what was it? Middle Grove. I keep mixing them up between the names. So Middle Grove was the first one he did.
Okay.
And he had all the boys together at first. So they were mingling. They didn't have any separations, anything like that.
Yeah.
They made friends. And then after a little while, he told them, okay, you're going to be separated into 2 groups. You'll be the Pythons and the Panthers.
Okay.
And they're going to fight against each other, kind of survival style, to win a prize, like the show Survivor.
Yeah.
So that's what they were doing, basically. And the camp counselors, who were all of Sharif's cohorts and students and associates, were doing little things to kind of egg the other groups on. So one of them, they like cut down the ropes on a flag that one of the groups had handmade after a loss or something like that. Yeah. And they stole clothes from their campsites and things like that too. Okay. So they were just going around like messing with them, like hoping that they would blame the other group. Yeah. But they found in this first experiment that it didn't work. They couldn't get these kids to be mad at each other. And it got to the point where one of the campers turned to the counselor and they're like, "Are you just trying to get a reaction out of us?"
Wow.
They knew. Mm-hmm. And also they had like a game of tug of war between these 2 groups. And when one of them lost, the ones who lost were such good sports, and they were like, oh, like they were the better team, like they deserved to win. Yeah. They were so good about it. So Sharif was really unhappy because it didn't prove his results at all. Mm-hmm. And he didn't even end up getting to the final portion of his experiment, which was the kind of communal concern where they all have to work together because they never fought in the first place.
Huh. Amazing.
And his idea for their communal concern for these 11-year-old boys was to start a forest fire that they had to put out.
That's what he was going to do.
That's what he was planning to do. So thankfully, they didn't get to that point.
Like, what if one of them died? What if
exactly. It's crazy.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So then he had to kind of revisit the experiment and revamp and see what happened there. Yeah. And his thought was that the reason it didn't work and why they didn't hate each other was because they were together beforehand. So they got to make those friendships. So when he did the second one, which was, what was it, Robber's Cave?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Now I'm getting my names right. Yeah. So Robber's Cave was the second one. And he didn't have them mingle at all. So he started them off as 2 separate camps. So I think they were the Rattlers and the Eagles for this one. So he had them totally separate. They didn't know about each other. And then all of a sudden he put them together and told them that this is the group you're fighting against. And almost immediately there was a change. They were a lot more kind of aggressive towards each other. They saw them as very other. Yeah. And the camp counselors didn't have to do very much to egg them on. Like there was even an escalation where they were like burning the other people's flag. Wow. And the only thing that the camp counselors had to do was leave matches out. Huh. But they made the choice to do that. Wow. Yeah. So it was getting really bad. And for this experiment, for their great communal concern, they turned off the valve on their communal water tank. Okay. And they're like up in the mountains. So they don't have any water access. So they turned off their water tank and they piled really heavy rocks in front of the valve where they would have to open it again. So all these boys who were left alone, like the counselors disappeared and everything, decided together they had to figure this out because they were like dehydrating and they knew there was no more water. Yeah. So they like went up to the valve in the mountains and started working on it together and eventually made like just like a chain so they could pass the rocks down and get them all out of the way. Oh, okay. So they were just really working together. Yeah. So Sharif was so happy because his experiment worked. Mm-hmm. So it was proven and whatever else. And it's still like in psychology textbooks today. Yeah. This experiment and his name and everything like that.
Huh. That's very, very interesting.
Yeah. But people's concern about this too was that he didn't tell parents anything.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the letters he wrote to parents about this camp was that they would like get to learn skills that would make them leaders and things like that. Just very like positive spin on everything. Yeah. Really and there was, there was a lady who ended up writing a book on these experiments and kind of the aftermath, and she called the book The Lost Boys. And she went to go interview all the people who are alive still today, because they're like into their 70s, because it was done in the 50s. And most of them still to this day didn't know that that was an experiment.
Jeez.
They had no idea. They had no idea what was going on. And then one of the men she was talking to said, oh, like I wasn't traumatized by that. And then he's like, I just really hate tents and camps and boats.
Yeah. Wow.
But he's not traumatized.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's amazing. Not telling the parents at all.
Yeah. Nobody knew anything.
But again, connecting it to today, like how, like right away, as soon as you said the two teams, it's divide and conquer.
Exactly.
Right? Like, so how, again, in these experiments, it's like, what do they do with this information? It's like Sharif was just happy. He's like, oh, I figured it out. But like, what do they do
it's
with
more
that?
I was right, now I can be famous.
Well, there's that, and also who financed it?
Oh,
Wait.
yeah, I was going to tell you that.
Yeah, who did finance it?
The Rockefeller Foundation.
So this was the Rockefeller.
Yeah.
So the Rockefeller Foundation, they're the ones that give this guy the money, these people the money.
Yeah, and the money was equivalent to today's $254,000.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
so it wasn't nothing.
Yeah, for them, nothing. They were billionaires back then. All the way back then. Like, so much money. It was crazy. So, now, what is the Rockefeller Foundation doing with that information? You know?
And why?
Exactly.
Why did they commission it
Why?
in the first place?
Because, again, like I said in the Bobo doll experiment, the thing to do would be, we interrupt this program. We just figured out that if people are separated into teams, so always watch out for being the other and being other and making people the other, and always come together. That whole thing would come out, but they don't do that. It's just in secret. The kids didn't even know.
Yeah.
And they take this information. What do they do with it? In my mind, they, in the worst case scenario, they use it for nefarious purposes on the public. It just kind of makes sense. And it also makes sense because we're talking about the 50s. And I would love to be able to figure out how to do our own independent study on this, or at least like look into it, because I wonder how much politics evolved from that time to where it is now. Because right now it's exactly that. It's two separate teams and they're othered. There's no coming together. You're not allowed to come together.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to get to know what the left's idea of anything is. You're not allowed to understand where the right's coming from. It's just a thing that you don't do.
Yeah, you just shut it down.
Yeah. And if you do, you get ostracized. You're a fence sitter. You're controlled opposition. You're a conspiracy theorist. Like, they just throw a whole bunch of things at you. You're problematic, which is one the left likes to use quite a bit. That's the problematic. So I just wonder, like, did they take that information and create what we have today in the political system?
Yeah, because it's always two camps.
Because, and again, I just wonder how things were before, the 40s, the 30s.
Yeah.
I wonder how quickly it evolved to what it is today after they did that experiment.
True.
I wonder from there, because the Rockefeller Foundation, they have all sorts of controls. I wouldn't say like they owned media, but they probably had a little bit of ownership here and there. I mean, media was such a small thing back then. It was just owning a few newspapers, or even owning part of a newspaper.
Yeah,
or even
radio.
just owning the factory of where the newspaper was printed.
True.
Like,
you have influence.
Yeah, exactly. All that would give you influence. So I wonder what they started doing from there.
Yeah.
Or if from there they were like, these newscasters need to talk a certain way. They need to say certain things. They need to be on certain sides. Or they need to push this or push that. I don't know. It really makes me wonder, because now, today, we see that very clear. We see Fox is very right-leaning with what they have to say. Although, when they had Tucker and certain people on board, they did have a lot of truth that was like looking at both sides of things. But very right-leaning. And then there's MSNBC, ABC, CNN, very left-leaning.
Yeah, like all the rest of them.
Yeah, exactly. Canada, they have CBC, very left-leaning, very controlled by the government. So I wonder. It really makes me think about it.
I think my favorite part of that experiment is that if they knew each other first, they couldn't be tricked into hating someone just because they're labeled a different team.
Mm-hmm. Well, and here's the thing. Again, back to going with what they do with that information. Maybe there's a certain part of that experiment that goes unknown or unspoken about, where they were like, how do we change people who do know each other? Like, what do we do there? Like, how do you take people who do know each other and separate them and make them other each other? Because we've went through that in the past 4 years. That happened very easily.
True.
And you don't even have to bring up the pandemic. You just talk about Trump.
Yeah.
Just Trump existing in the political sphere made it so sons wouldn't talk to fathers.
Yeah, it was so polarizing.
You know? Like, it was so dividing, so separating. Weird stuff.
And especially, like, it had nothing to do with some people.
Sorry?
And also, like, Trump didn't have any effect on the lives of some people.
Oh. So
like, people in Canada were...
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy. It literally has no effect on your life whatsoever. And they were, like, so intense about it.
People in Canada. I mean, Jordan Peterson brought this up when he was talking about people branding truckers as, like, having, like, Nazi affiliations. And he's like, that's not a thing in Canada. He's like, that's not a tradition that we have in Canada. He's like, there's no neo-Nazi bunch of people in Canada. He's like, that's not a thing. And when you bring up Trump, it's like the same type of thing, you know? Like, you could hear two Canadians kind of like, what are you, a Trump supporter? Like, if you say certain things or if you're talking about certain things, you must be a Trump supporter. And it's like,
why do you care?
You can't vote
for
the president
exactly
in Canada. But it did affect a lot of Canadians. A lot.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's very, very
like
odd.
More so than the Prime Minister of Canada would.
Yeah, way more.
Yeah.
Way more people were interested in who became the president than who became prime minister.
For sure.
Way more. That was just like, that was a nationwide, that was a whole continent was interested in who becomes the president. When it came to the prime minister, people didn't even know who the hell Justin Trudeau was.
Yeah, nobody cares.
Yeah, he had to stomp his foot down and become fascist.
Yeah, now everybody talks about
That's
him.
when everybody was like, wait, what's he doing?
Yeah.
Can he come over here with that? No? Okay. But yeah, just seeing the people separated like that, and just wondering if they ever did an experiment like that where they're like, let's figure out how to separate people. Because the only reason I say that is because they obviously did figure it out some point in time through the I would say probably late 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. It was like perfected, I would say. So they did figure it out, and I just wonder if experiments like that aid them. You know,
True.
That information.
Yeah, like there's not 3 political parties.
Yes.
There's 2.
Yeah.
And where did that come from?
Always. And anybody who would come in terms of like an independent would be like, you're a kook.
Yeah, they're always a very, very small, not really a serious following.
And will not get covered at all.
Yeah, no.
And that makes me actually think that's probably why RFK, chose to run as a Democrat, because he could have went independent and been separated from that and got a lot of right-leaning people on his side very easily. But instead he ran as a Democrat because as an independent, they'd just be like, you're an independent crazy person.
Yeah.
You know?
That's like too easy to label.
Yeah, exactly. So instead he's a Democratic crazy person.
Yeah. True.
Which is the norm today.
Yeah.
Blends right in. Yeah, very interesting experiment. And so interesting that it was ran by the Rockefeller Foundation.
I know,
You should
right?
just look into experiments that they paid for.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But also, like, when my conspiracy brain starts to turn on and be like, what is our joint concern? Like, what's coming that needs to put us all together again?
There was a president, 2 stories, in I think it was World War II, maybe World War I. One of the world wars. There was a bunch of people fighting. I think it was Germany, America. I'm not 100%, but there was wolves. The wolves were killing both sides.
Oh, that's scary.
And they decided to come together
And kill the wolves.
because they're like, we gotta kill the wolves.
Yeah.
So they came together, murdered the wolves.
Wow.
And they were like, okay, let's get
Now
back
we'll
to
get back to killing each other.
it. So that was like like they came together on
That's
that.
crazy.
Isn't that weird?
I
It
got
was
like
just
tingles
wolves.
from that. Wow.
Can you imagine the wolves just show up and they're just like, we don't care. All we smell is flesh.
Wow. Oh,
We
that's
just
so
smell
scary.
flesh. We don't care what it is. Hamburgers, hot dogs, sausages, whatever.
Oh my
Let's
God.
go. So yeah, they came together on that. And then what was the other thing that I was going to say? A president. I think it was Nixon who said, it was either Nixon or George W. Bush Sr. that said what would make people come together is a alien invasion.
Yeah.
He was like, if only there was something like an alien invasion, people would come together as like one world. And he was like, I think it was George Bush, just because he was all about like, one world government, but I'm not sure.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But I was thinking aliens. People keep talking about like getting ready for alien invasions and being like conditioned for that to happen.
Oh yeah, and that's been happening since Independence Day with Will Smith.
Yeah, true.
Right?
And it always happens in LA.
True.
Like all the invasion movies are LA.
So it was Reagan. It was Reagan that said it. Yeah, when he was president, he was talking about an alien invasion. Reagan's vision of a unifying alien invasion. So he was just like, we would all unite if there was an alien invasion, which is true. Which is very true. Kind of.
Yeah.
I don't think North Korea would. They'd be like,
No, probably not.
kill yourselves. All of you. They'd be like, go to town. All of
Yeah.
you. We will be gods afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's the thing that would bring us all together. I think as much as people talk about the election, the 2020 election, I think there was a big faction of people who wanted to come together in regards to Trump. I think there was just some people who just didn't like him, and I think it's possible that Biden got all the votes, mainly because a lot of people didn't like Trump.
Yeah.
Like, I think that is possible. And I think in the opposite direction right now, and I can say this for United States and Canada, I think a large portion of people are going to come together for Trudeau.
Yeah.
And be like, we just need this guy gone. Like, everybody's going to kind of, not everybody, but a large part of people who voted for him 7 years ago, is it? 7?
Yeah.
Maybe? Like, a large portion of people who voted for him 7 years ago who were like, I don't know why I did this. This is terrible.
Yeah.
And people who have been like, yeah, I told you so. He's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
They're all going to come together and get him out of office. And I think the same thing's going to happen with Joe Biden as well.
Well, it's amazing to see what happens, because in any election in a very like democratic country like Canada or the US, usually it's less than 40% of people go out to vote.
Yeah, it's terrible.
So generally what happens, even when Trump was elected the first time, people saw him as a joke still.
Mm-hmm.
So they thought it was easy for Hillary to win. So a lot of people still didn't go out to vote, even if they wanted to vote for Hillary. And then when Donald Trump was elected, they were like, oh.
Yeah.
And then the reverse happened.
Yeah.
So then Biden was in, and they're like, oh my God, Trump can't get elected.
Yeah.
So there was like that influx of people who didn't go to vote for Hillary.
Yes.
So it swung the other way.
Yeah.
So it's like we're going to see that happening again and again
I think.
as we go through.
Well, we'll
versus
see.
if everybody would just go out and vote, then we'd actually have like more of a
You'd see
realistic show of what the country wants.
Yeah. Way more realistic. Way more realistic. Because if everybody came out, and there's 400 million people in the United States, and there's 600 million votes, you'd be like, okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Something's happening.
Yeah.
What just happened?
Yes.
Here? Who did this? And then you could actually look into it.
Exactly.
But if not everybody shows up, and then some people talk about tampering, and some people say it's legit, it's like...
You can't, it's impossible to tell.
It's hard. It becomes really hard. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, with Trump now, I think a lot of people are going to come out on both sides because they know it's not a joke.
Yeah.
They know it's
Well,
not
I
a
think
joke.
people like looking back realize that he was a better president than we gave him credit for.
Yeah, that's how it always goes.
One of those hindsight 2020 things.
Yeah, that's how it always goes. People don't realize, left or right, they don't realize what they have until it's gone.
Yeah.
And as soon as Biden came in, it was just like,
What happened?
he was undoing things that Trump did that were good. undoing them solely because it was Trump that did them.
Yeah, but every president does that. It's just ridiculous.
But he did it on a high level.
Yeah.
I think he signed some ungodly amount of things
Yeah.
out because it was just like things that Trump did. Just undoing everything he did. Everything. It made no sense. It made no sense. And as far as I know, the things that Trump undid that Obama did were actually things that a lot of Americans did not like.
Yeah.
Like,
I generally think it should be treated like a yes and situation. Like if something gets written in, then the people elected that person to do that job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you should respect that person, that former president's decisions. If you need to make an amendment to it, I think that's a thing that you could do.
How do you improve it?
Yeah. Not just delete everything.
Yeah.
Because then nothing gets done ever in the world.
That's true. That's true. That is very true. Yeah, very, very interesting to see what happens. But I definitely know, like, there's no way Biden can win now. There's no way. Not with RFK and Trump and DeSantis all becoming these, like, juggernauts in the race. You know, quote unquote juggernaut. They're not doing crazy, but, you know, Robert F. Kennedy is using podcasts like the same way Trump used Twitter.
True.
In the day. And Trump is not on Twitter this election, but he still has this massive following, and Biden is literally nowhere to be seen. And
Yeah.
he can't have a conversation that goes past a minute and 30 seconds.
Or 7 p.m.
Yeah, exactly. He can't do it. He just can't do it. It's nuts. He can't debate. He can't have conversations. He can't run his own Twitter.
Yeah.
It just makes no sense. Well, meanwhile, Robert F. Kennedy's challenging Russell Brand to pull-up competition.
That's amazing.
And Russell Brand's like, I'm going to lose. I'm 20 years younger than you.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So he's incredible. I would just love to see head-to-head RFK and Trump. That's what I'd love to see. But again, it goes back, like, maybe I'm just conditioned by this whole study. I just want to see one side or the other, this team stuff.
True.
It's weird. It's really weird.
That is weird.
You know, all done by the Rockefellers.
Yeah. I think that's our brains work a lot in dualities as well. Most people understand things better in a sense of black and white.
Yeah.
So
True.
you need that good and evil, which war against each other. And that's the way our brain kind of interprets things.
Yeah, I know. I do notice that it is hard for people to just kind of be like, it's hard for them to look at both sides and be like, it doesn't matter which side, it just matters who's better.
Yeah.
Like if I'm like blue no matter who type, you know, or red till I'm dead type, like you shouldn't be that way. It should be, if the better guy is Democratic,
exactly.
who cares? Like just put him in. If the better guy is Republican, just put him in. Like it shouldn't matter. The issues are what should matter. And I keep saying to people, I keep making video upon video, it's all about who has the people's interests at heart.
Yeah, exactly.
If you don't have the people's interests at heart, it doesn't matter what side they're on. They shouldn't be up for the job.
Yeah, and who's going to actually listen to what the people want?
Yeah, and I do think that Trump has a lot of the people's interests at heart. And the only reason I think that, not even past policies and everything. Hold on, let me just switch this quick. Not even for any particular reason other than the fact that the mainstream media continuously attacks him.
True.
And he's running for president. He is facing 400 years in prison. 400. That's pretty
That's
crazy.
Insane.
Like, that's
like
insane.
even murderers don't get that.
Yeah. And if you look at what he did, it's like you just compared it to murder. Like, it's not even close.
No.
It makes no sense. So when I see that, I'm like, oh, there's something he wants to do for the people that they just don't want to see happen at all.
Yeah.
400 potentially? 400 years? For someone who's almost 80?
That's crazy.
You could just be like 20 years. We're good.
Even that.
Get him 20 years. We'll be fine.
He's already past the average age of
That's what I mean.
life expectancy in the United States. I think it's like 69.
400, man. They want to give him a bunch of years. So when I see that, I'm like, oh, okay. There's something that he has in store for the people that this regime or administration doesn't want to see come into action. But I'm the type that's been saying there's an attack going on within the United States, within North America. There's attacks within, I think, that are going on. The government seems like it's is it a virus? A virus like it's like an immune response where it attacks itself.
Yeah,
that's what it seems like. The governments in North America are like right now.
Autoimmune diseases.
Yeah. They're just like attacking themselves.
Yeah,
they're just destroying from the inside. It's very odd.
Yeah,
very odd. You're not seeing that in any other place. A little bit in France, because France is terrible. Well, not France, but the president is terrible.
Yeah.
But anything else in there?
No, that's pretty much it for Robber's Cave.
Robber's Cave. Brought to you by the Rockefeller Foundation. Absolutely crazy. But like the video, guys. Like the video. It helps so much. You have no idea. Boosts us out of the shadow realm. I want to be amongst the Russell Brands and the Redacteds and trigonometry and all these people who talk about things way worse than I do.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I'm like, I don't know. This. But like the video, it helps so much. You have no idea. And other than that, I'm out.
Bye.
Say bye.